very often in his writings is confusing, and that really underscores the main challenge with Paul. He's very confusing. And as I've said before, you can read the entire Tanakh, you can read all 4 Gospels, you come to Paul and the wheels fly off.
Hi, and welcome to our Bible study channel.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Love to all those in the session, all of those who are listening. Don't miss the message, judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.
These are videos that go pretty in depth. First thing you should probably do is pause and read our 12 rules for reading biblical text. And if you don't like the 12 rules or you don't understand the 12 rules, well, I don't have time to explain them all. Go back to the book that I wrote and uploaded on this channel, which takes you through the entire arc and how we made these quote-unquote 12 rules as a framework of what we found after 7 years digging meticulously and carefully through the text. So if you're confused, go do that. If I refer back, well, that's probably because we actually post these things in order. So they're all done in series. And if you jump in at the middle of a series without any schema or background knowledge, and you get all pissed off, well, that's also not our problem. This is a group where we go line by line, scroll by scroll through the text. Warning, we are not language sensitive, so if you can't handle some cussing, it's not the place for you. We also do not endorse nor approve of pretty much any mainstream theology. So if you're looking for that, also definitely not the place for you. We do a video about the characters that we use in our Bible study series. And the reason we do this is sort of so that they can kind of get in your head. So we do have a video explaining why we chose the people we chose and how their sort of energy characteristics go along with the biblical characters to modernize it for people so they know what the heck we're reading. Clearly, the Roman Church was not doing their job and looking for the lost sheep of the reunited House of David. So that's what we're doing, okay? We're taking that away from them because they screwed it up. The brilliant rabbis also down there in Babylon are also not looking for the lost sheep of the reunited kingdom of David. So you're not going to hear, let's follow Rome. And you're not going to hear, let's follow the rabbis on this channel. Because, you know, sorry, not sorry, but the Bible wasn't actually written for the corrupt Levitical priesthood post-Babylon and Persia to read it through their little janky books. And it also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of pagan 4th century church fathers. So we're not doing that either. You guys can both have a seat. Oddly enough, the Bible also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of some dumbass scholars with pieces of paper that say they're smarter than everyone, but have never seen a Davidic covenant in their life. Not written for them either. You know who it's written for? It's written for the reunited house of David, who are actually in covenant and are actually the sheep. That's who it's written for. That's why nobody else can understand what the heck's going on. What you are going to hear is what you're supposed to hear, which is, let's follow the king. And let's get started.
So, we are going to war.
Yes.
what's to happen with this new movement, and we have to explore basically two ideas. One is, what is the church supposed to do? It's not a church yet, it's still a shul, it's still a group of Jews. What are they supposed to do with the growing number of non-Jews who are being attracted to this movement? What role do they have? Isn't this a Jewish thing? Are we supposed to keep them in the shul? What do we do with them? And secondly, what should the Jewish synagogue, the traditionalists, how should they deal with this movement that does not show any signs of slowing down?
And it turns out that Paul admits that he is from the Herodian family. Yeah, he admits at the end of Romans, where he sends greetings to his kinsman, the littlest Herod. It's in chapter, I don't remember what the number, but something like, the last chapter of Romans, he sends greetings to his Herodian kinsman.
Do Gentiles have as much law that they have to be responsible for as the Jews? No, because the Jews have a different relationship with God. They have multiple promises, multiple covenants. This is all Romans 9, 4 through 5. But Paul himself, despite the rhetoric of Galatians, is Judaizing these Gentiles. He's teaching them a kind of Judaism light. How do we know this? He's talking about the Messiah, and he's talking about exclusive allegiance to the God of Israel. That's Jewishness.
Ultimately, from the rabbinical perspective, the rabbis said, probably around the year 100, they said in Yiddish, schon genug, which, of course, they didn't speak Yiddish back then, but they said, enough already. And they instituted a formal ban on believing Christians in the synagogue.
He basically thinks he's a prophet. He thinks he's a Jewish prophet who has been designated by the Israelite God to continue in this line of other prophets.
But if you were a Jew who believed that Jesus was Mashiach, and you kept coming to shul, at one point the rabbi said, that's it. We do not regard this as acceptable, ideology within the synagogue, and you're no longer welcome here. How did they enforce this? They instituted a blessing in the Shemona Esrei, in the central prayer, the Amidah. The Shemona Esrei, of course, the word means 18, and there are 18 blessings in the Shemona Esrei, but if you count them today, you'll see there are in fact 19. And what is the 19th blessing? It is the blessing that reads Valamal Shinim, and for the informers. In some very early textual variants, it even says Vilanotzrim, and for the Christians. Meaning it's quite explicit.
It seems, if your theory is correct, that the Marcionite school is trying to refashion Paul into maybe not an anti-Jewish Paul, but into a Paul that wants to do what Marcion is so famous for.
And it says, anyone who does these things, let there be no hope for them, let they be, nullified, and so on and so forth. We can read the actual text of it if you want. Why don't you lead the prayers today? And he would have to go up there, and he would have to publicly repeat the Amidah. And when he got to that particular blessing, he had a choice. Either he could pronounce it, and this blessing was really a curse upon himself. So if he were to say that blessing, that meant, okay, I'm in like flint with the Jews, I reject my Christian leanings. But if he refused to say it, then he would be forcibly ejected from the synagogue. Many scholars believe that the Apostle John, Saint John, was one of these Jews, and in fact his treatment of the Jews in the Gospels is perhaps the nastiest of them all.
The ideas that Paul's advanced were completely opposed by the Hebrew Bible. Paul was at war with the Jewish scriptures. Now, he never says that. What Paul is doing is he's synchronizing Platonic thinking, dualistic thinking, the ideas that were ensconced in mystery religions in his time, in the centuries that preceded the first century. Gnosticism was a big deal. Dualism, Neoplatonic thinking. That's what Paul is teaching, and then he's just makes that appear. He doesn't really. If you look into it, you go, "Whoa, there's nothing to do with that." But he's conveying that somehow this is consistent with the Hebrew Bible, and it's not.
About Jesus is a little too controversial, I think. Paul is controversial enough. So what about this issue of Paul and the Torah? So I've mentioned already that he has this, it's always translated as nomos, as the law. So when he's talking Torah, he's talking the law, and it sounds like the rules. I really got to figure out about the rules. Are the rules important to me? And it's not clear exactly what Paul's position is on it. There's no question he's obsessed with it. A recent calculation indicated that 60% of the references to the word Torah, or law, in the Christian scripture are from Paul, and that's over 200 references. He's really talking about it a lot. But he seems to be of two minds as to what exactly to do with it. He never says, throw it out the window. He never says observe it completely. And he seems to have, a conflicted attitude about not only what should Gentiles do, but what should Jews do, Jewish Christians.
Is Simon the associate of Felix, Festus, Bernice, and Drusilla? And so that's who it was. It was Simon Magus, but he's called the Paul, basically, with more significance than we readily see in it. So I think, again, it makes the most sense to me if the historical Paul was Simon Magus, and that he may even have written part of the letter to the Romans.
Then isn't Christianity the religion about Jesus rather than the religion of Jesus? And if so, isn't Paul the one who kind of does that, who creates this thing we call Christianity? So that's the kind of issue that we're dealing with in the course, the relationship of Paul and Jesus, where they're similar, but also where they're very, very different.
And then he says that he received things from the Lord. And one of the things he received from the Lord that to me is kind of shocking, I put it in the book and highlighted, is what people call the Mass, the Holy Communion, the Lord's Supper. People don't read carefully a lot of times. They just kind of go over it very quickly. But it's in 1 Corinthians 11, one of his letters, chapter 11. He says, "Now, brethren, I received from the Lord what I'm now going to tell you." It's referring back to the Gospels that mention the Last Supper, right? No, but see, Paul writes before the Gospels. So he's not going by the Gospels. He's saying, what does he say? He didn't say, I read it in a Gospel. He said, I received this from the Lord. And when he says the Lord, that's how he refers to Jesus. And he talks about an abundance of revelations that he got. More than anyone else, basically, is what he's claiming, because he has opponents that are saying, well, we get revelations too. And he uses these very compounded words like the superabundance and greatness of what I've got. In Greek, they're kind of compounded.
But obviously, if you take any book of 66 chapters and just skip the first 52, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble.
Ron wrote a song, Kill Some Piss Ants. Kill some piss ants for Jesus.
I actually wanted to read a passage from 2nd Isaiah. It's 53, 3-6, just so people can kind of get a feel for the language that we're talking about. He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity. And as one from whom others hid their faces, he was despised, and we held him of no account. Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases, yet we accounted him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have all turned to our own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. Now, as someone who's sat through numerous church services, this language is very Jesus adjacent. Yes. What is the writer actually talking about here?
Wave at everybody and do the sign of the cross and then let her go.
I'll tell you, it is impossible for a Christian to read that
and not think Jesus. It cannot be done. I mean, it just can't be done because it's so deeply ingrained in us that this is a prediction of the suffering Messiah. And that this is talking about the one who's going to be executed for the sins of others. He's wounded for our transgressions and bruised for our iniquities. I mean, it's Jesus. And so I get that. I was raised that way too. And I understand that. As I said earlier, it's important to read, historical scholars think it's important to read any book and any passage of any book in its own context.
Not going to let these, it may be late, but I'm not letting these pissants keep me from pressing on anymore.
So, question, is that what is going on? And how do we assess really what's being talked about?
Well, there are several things to pay close attention to if you want to know what the author is saying. There's no mention of a Messiah. In other words, he doesn't say that he doesn't call this person a Messiah. He doesn't call him a son of David. Doesn't call him a future king. He doesn't use messianic language for this person. This is a reference. He does use the term servant. This is the servant of the Lord.
Now that I've got it analyzed, frankly, they're a little easier to handle than the giants. Where they get to you is when you just don't bring them in your focus meter.
Jesus.
He does not mention Jesus. He does not. Yeah.
You're so busy with the giants that the pissants have got you before you know it.
If you look at the passage closely, he is not predicting that this person is going to suffer. He's saying that the person has suffered. The suffering has already happened. He's predicting that the person who has suffered is going to be vindicated.
Now that I know where the enemy is, we're pressing on.
So the context is everything. That this comes after the Babylonian destruction. And then all of a sudden in chapter 40, he starts on a completely different note. The question is, what's the servant? Because the servant is in the middle of all that.
God is so angry that by election he raises them up. Not just this, though. It's not just this. It gets worse. The calling, this is the crazy part, the calling is to Ephraim.
Read it. You are my servant, O Israel. Whoa, wait, what? Israel? Yeah. Israel, the people of God, are the servant of God who have suffered and now are going to be vindicated.
If the servant is Israel and is the nation of Israel, who is being who is responsible for the sins that are talked about, the punishment that makes them whole? Who are the them or the us?
I think one of the big problems in the Bible is being able to deal with the imagery that's used and knowing where the problem with using imagery, with using metaphor, with using symbol, is that these things can never translate into some kind of literal language. The people, the leaders of Judah, the aristocrats, the wealthy folk, the people who are in power, they have been taken away from their nation and sent to Babylon. They're living in a different country, in a different city. So
What this appears to be saying is that the people have suffered for their sins. The nation of Israel has suffered, and now those who have been suffering off in Babylon are going to be brought back. Those who have been suffering off in Babylon are going to be brought back.
You work for a Rothschild, right? You work for a Jew.
Knock, knock.
8, 10, and 11, 44, 1, 44, 21, 45, 4, 48, 20, 49, 3. You see where this is going. You look them up on your own. All tells that the servant is Israel.
I said, knock, knock.
All the chapters that introduce it are not referring to all the Jews are God's faithful servant.
And where the hell was I? Oh, right.
All the chapters that introduce it are not referring to all the Jews are God's faithful servant.
Guys, by now it should be obvious that they want to get rid of you.
What is that? I mean, look at that. What is the Star of David? Is there a Star of David in the Bible? What is this?
There actually is. It's the Seal of Solomon.
Is that it?
That's the Seal of Solomon, you know. That's the seal he was given by God to control any demons he wanted.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Butter. Butter who? Well, you better get out your umbrellas because it is about to goddamn rain.
After all, in Isaiah 49, verse 6, we are told that the servant, which is the righteous remnant of the Jewish people, is called to bring the rest of the tribes of Jacob, meaning the remnant who is loyal to God is given a mandate to be an Gai, a light to the nations, and to bring the tribes of Jacob, the rest of the Jews who are not observant. This is not anybody. These are the Jews who have taken up the mantle to be God's loyal servant and to be like Abraham, our father, who God loves.
I stormed into that courtroom. I kicked down the frickin' door.
I don't know if any of you have checked tonight's forecast. It'll be just a rainstorm. Hell, it won't be a thunderstorm.
And I said, I'm here. And I want my fucking covenant. And I want it now.
It'll be a goddamn hurricane.
Tell you the truth, there's nothing I can do to change it. There's a small little remnant, and they're going to go up against the whole entire church. That's what this book says. Did you know that?
You understand? What? No answer?
I don't want to kill you people. Just want to make that clear from the get-go. I want you to work for me, and you can't do that if you're fucking dead now, can you?
Kill some pissants for Jesus, grind them right through the floor. Kill some pissants for Jesus, and then kill one pissant more. Be sure to give God the glory for knowledge to set spirits free. Kill some pissants for Jesus, and then kill some pissants for me.
They know the Bible like the back of their hand.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Oodles in the steps. All of those who are listening, don't miss the message judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.